Good afternoon. It is I, cardiologist, back again. Today we're going to show you how to replace a lower control arm on a Mercedes Benz. Last week I replaced the left lower control arm. I saw that the ball joint was messed up, and I saw that the rubber was messed up, and the right side wasn't that bad, but the more that I inspected it, the more I realized the ball joint really does have a leak on it. I'll show that to you. I've decided to replace the right side. After doing the left side, it was much better. People don't get this job done right. I have a fantastic mechanic. I really like him a lot. But you know what? The last time he worked on this, and he doesn't work on it himself, he has his people, it really wasn't done just the right way. And if it's not done the right way, the part wears out and it tears. We're going to show you how to do this thing right. We're going to start off with the unboxing video. I got this from FCP Euro. You know, they have a lifetime warranty. By the way, they do not sponsor me. I'm not asking them to sponsor me. I'm not asking anybody to sponsor me. I'm just a guy doing my thing. But what's nice about FCP Euro is that not only do they have really good parts and really good service, but if the thing breaks, or should I say when it does, because there is no part that doesn't, then you just pack it up, send it back. Now, of course, the calculation has to be that it has to cost you less money to send it back than it does to just buy a new one. But for an expensive part like this, that's the way to go. As you can see, I got a Lemforder, and it's a real nice one. And this is original equipment manufacturing. It's not exactly the same as what came with the Mercedes, but to be very honest with you, it's probably better. This big R over here is probably a slight little clue that it's meant for the right side. I'm just thinking. Okay, we got the car jacked up, we got the wheel off. Here we are with the wheel off. Let's come underneath and do an inspection, show you why this job is necessary in the first place. Here we are underneath the car, and the piece that we are looking at is right here. This is the front lower control arm, right side. Now, there are two issues. Number one is the ball joint. Come look at my finger right over here. Ball joint, ball joint. Come on, baby, show me. Here we are. This ball joint. Look at that. This boot is ripped, and the grease from this ball joint is gone, so this ball joint is gone. And what I strongly suspect is that coming up here, this piece is probably also not quite right. So let us discuss why this piece tends to go and what the key is on installing it. This is the new piece. You see that it has a rubber bushing right over here. This rubber bushing is 360 degrees. Now, when this is installed and the bolt is tightened down, the car needs to be in the correct riding position. And then what's going to happen is that as this thing flexes up and down, this rubber bushing is going to give an appropriate amount of flex, an appropriate amount of travel. Now, what would happen if you tighten it when it is not in the correct position? What happens is that then you put it in the correct position, and just sitting there, it's already under tension. And then when it goes through its normal travel, this will be under an inappropriate amount of tension from the beginning, and then it's going to tear. So the key is to tighten this thing down when the car is fully loaded. And that is where people tend to make a mistake, even experienced shops. I know that my mechanic is awesome, but in this particular case, I also know that they tightened it not quite right. This new piece comes with the ball joint already pressed in and brand new. Here's what it looks like when it's supposed to be nice and new like it is. Here's what this looks like when it's nice and new. This can also be pressed out if you have the right equipment. But the truth is that for a guy like me, just buying a piece that has everything already pre-pressed is easier and cheaper than it would be to go through the motions. So we're going to start out by removing the old piece. Okay, the lower control arm is known as the torque strut in Mercedes lingo. Here's how this is going to go. You've got an E18 over here. You've got a 21 millimeter nut right over here. Let's see if I can show you that. Yeah. All right. You want to spin that off. The torque spec for this is going to be 80 Newton meters plus 120 degrees. Now down here, the torque spec is going to be 80 Newton meters plus, 50 Newton meters plus 60 degrees. And we're going to be taking that off in a minute, and I have a special tool that you need to use to get this off. Number one is going to be to loosen this setup. I recommend a setup like this. This is my E18 with a breaker bar, and then this is my 21 to counter hold. Now we're going to loosen this knot. Okay, this bolt is now nice and loose, as you can see. It's still attached, but it's loose. So that is the first step. Now we're going to loosen the ball joint nut right here. We're going to loosen this. Okay, the ball joint gets loosened with a number 22 wrench, number 22, which I've already loosened it, and then you counter hold it with a number 6. No, that's not working. Maybe it's not a number 6. Maybe it is the next one lower, which would be a 5. No. Alright, well I thought it was a 6 based on checking the new part. Maybe it's a 6 that just needs some persuasion. Or maybe it's a 5.5. But right now I don't think that it needs counter holding, because right now that I've loosened it, I think all I need to do is just take it off, and I don't think the ball joint is going to spin. Now the new ones do spin, and they have to be counter held. And the way that you counter hold them, again, I've tested the new one and it's a 6. So I'm just going to take this nut off. Okay, the nut is off. The next step is to get the ball joint puller from Harbor Freight. Dirt cheap. I think list price is either $14.99 or $19.99, and you know they always run those 20% coupons. Let me show that to you. This is the Harbor Freight POS ball joint puller. Why POS? Let's face it, it's pretty cheap. It's meant to be used once, twice, 3 times. This will be the second time. If I get 2 uses out of it, it has more than paid for itself. We're going to show you how you do it. It has 2 positions, the low position, the high position. I like putting it in the high position for this particular job. And then these forks over here get banged in underneath, and here, kind of like this. And then this piece will sit on the stud, and then as I screw this down, it's going to push the thing out of there. I will set it up and show you how it works. Okay, what we're going to do is bring this in here, get the forks underneath there, then we're going to hit this with a hammer, and when we hit it with a hammer, those forks are going to go in, and then this piece, the lower piece, goes underneath the bolt, and it's going to push out. But I have to hit it with a hammer. Once it's in position, I'll show you again. Okay, the thing is in position. This is going to push up on the bolt. That's on the steering knuckle. Now I'm going to go ahead in and screw this down, and then the thing will pop. Alright, let's see if there's any possibility of filming this. Here we go. Get the 19mm on here, which fits the tool, and you just start tightening it. 19mm. tighten. Just keep going, and then we're going to hear the pop at some point. You should probably lubricate these threads. I had oiled them so that we don't have too much trouble. This tool is once again not the highest quality. In fact, it's the lowest quality. But it should be able to work. Now, if I were working with two hands and not trying to film, it'd be a hell of a lot easier. But that's not how things go. And also, you don't know when the thing's gonna pop. Unless it just did, like that. It just popped. How about that? So now we're good. And now, as you can see, there it is. Good. And that is clearly the hardest part of the job. And congratulations to the Harbor Freight tool. It is good enough that it has survived 2 jobs, which, if you read online, is probably pretty darn good, because people say that it either makes it for 1 pull or none. So I'm pretty happy with this. People knock Harbor Freight. I do not. I like it. Okay, now we're going to unscrew this bolt and take this part off. Okay, I removed the nut, and then you see we have a washer, and then here comes the bolt. Bolt is out. There goes the bolt, and now the whole control arm can be removed. Okay, an inspection of the part. This is where our trouble is. So first of all, take a look at this ball joint. That was pretty messed up. Now, here's the part though that you really want to see. Now this, let's get the light right in here. This is the rubber. And take a look at the tears in the rubber. We got rubber tears. Now, that is ultimately why we need to replace this. And these tears, in turn, are caused by improper installation. And I will now show you the correct way to do it. Here's a lineup of the new versus the old. You can certainly see new versus old. And we're going to put this in and show you how to do it correctly. Okay, I have the new part kind of put in here. The bolt is sticking through here from the ball joint, and I have put the bolt and the washer in on this side, and the kit comes with a new nut. So here's the old washer. That's going to go in first, and then the new nut goes in, and then we're going to leave it very loose, which is the key. Okay, so the nut is in, but you can see that even though it's attached, it's completely hand tight, and that is key, because I am going to have to put this car down to have all of the weight on the wheel before you tighten it. If you don't do that, that's when you get the premature tearing of all that rubber. The next step is to put the new nut on the ball joint. We're going to counter hold the ball joint with a 6mm hex, and then we will tighten that. Okay, so I have a number 6 counter holding. This is a 21. I'm going to use my 21 wrench, and I'm going to snug this down and draw that ball joint in. Okay, so now you get to the point where the thing is tight enough that it no longer needs to be counter held. And once that's the case, you now tighten this to 50 Newton meters, and then after that you turn it for 60 degrees, and that will be its final torque setting. So that is what I am going to do next. This can be tightened before you put the car back down. That's fine, because the ball joint does have rotational abilities, and that moves. That won't screw things up. Okay, so this nut has now been torqued to 50 Newton meters plus 60 degrees, and this thing is now at its final setting. This one is hand tight, and that is the key. That is the key. See? All hand tight, just spins perfect. Now, what we're going to do is put the wheel back on the car. We're going to put the car back on the ground. The last part has to be done with full weight on the car. That's where people screwed this up. Okay, the car is sitting back down. You kind of rock it a little bit. You make sure everything gets in perfect shape. This is the difficult part of the whole procedure. It is very unwieldy to get in here. There's almost no space. Now, there are special racks. You could put it on a wheel alignment rack if you're a professional. Well, Lord knows that I'm not. I suppose you could drive this up on ramps, which I might be able to do. But I have enough room just to sneak under here, put a wrench back here to counter hold, put my E18 there, and we're going to get this to 80 Newton meters followed by 120 degrees, and that will be the correct torque spec. And so this is just working with very little room, very fiddly and difficult, but that's what it's going to take to get that right. And the key is that now the rubber is currently in no tension because this was hand tight. It's in the correct driving position. Now I'm going to tighten it. So the rubber is basically going to be centered. When it moves up, the rubber goes in one direction. When it moves down, it goes in the other. And it's never going to have to be under inappropriate strain, and it is not going to prematurely tear. This is what messes up the bushings on the majority of these lower control arms. With respect, it is mostly not being installed correctly. Okay, so now I have this torqued down to 80 Newton meters, and the specifications now say you're supposed to go 120 degrees. So how do I know what's 120? This is where we're going to be clever. Obviously a circle is 360. This is a 6-point Torx bolt. Therefore, 360 divided by 6 is 60 degrees. The difference between each notch is 60 degrees. I need 2 notches. So I'm starting off here, and I made a line here corresponding with my starting point. And I'm just going to need to basically keep it going until the second mark, which is at this notch. The second notch will then be here at my starting point. At that point, I will have rotated it 120 degrees beyond the 80 Newton meter torque. Then it's going to be in perfect spec, and we're ready for another few miles. And so another job done. This piece off to the bin. 241,000 miles and counting. Once again, this has been a Car-D-ology production.